Good morning and thank you for joining our webinar. I'm Andrea Tantillo with the Houston-Galveston Area Council, and before we get started, I want to let you know that this meeting is being recorded and remind you that all attendee microphones will be muted throughout the presentations. We'll have time for questions throughout the presentations. Just type in your question in the question box. And if you would like to see today's agenda, you could download it from the handout section of your control panel. Now I'd like to introduce HGAC Executive Director Chuck Wimple to welcome us and begin the webinar.
Thank you, Andrea. Good morning, everybody. We really appreciate you tuning in to our second annual Downtown Revitalization Summit. We'd like to place an emphasis on some of our community development and economic development activities on rural and small towns in our region. The Houston-Galveston Area Council service region is that slightly darker shaded area on that opening slide, 13 counties, over 120 cities, many of them qualifying as small towns and small cities. So you're all very important to us, very important members, and we want to make sure that you're getting some great service from us through these types of webinars and summit opportunities. There's a few things that we're going to go over today. We're all in a much different environment now. One of the biggest strengths at the Houston-Galveston Area Council is bringing people together, gathering to share ideas, to learn best practices, to kind of tackle some of those problems that we all share across boundaries. It's been a bit more challenging in this virtual environment, but in some ways, it's opened up new opportunities for us. We have a fantastic slate of speakers. Andrea will introduce them when I'm done with my opening remarks. So we hope you have a great summit today and a great workshop. And we'll be asking a few questions throughout the summit today. And I hope we get to a few of these topics, and perhaps the speakers can think about these as we move forward. But one question we all have on our minds right now is, what will Main Street look like in a couple of years as we emerge from the COVID-19 situation? Will our small towns be great places to visit? Will they be great places to live? Will our residential patterns change with the new onset of telework for much of our region? And how do we handle a return to gathering with some of the current concerns that we have? Because even once we're out of our current pandemic situation, we're all developing new patterns in our lives, new patterns in the way we interact with each other. How do we handle a return to gathering in the future? Because those gatherings are so important for many of our small towns, festivals, community events, town square activities. Is there an opportunity now, as we prepare for the future, to increase our profile virtually, much like we are today? Are we prepared for a shift, perhaps, over the next few years towards more of what might be called a staycation, or a short drive in an RV or to a bed and breakfast, kind of a low density visit option? And two more things real quickly. How do we keep our local flavor as we look to the future? It's very challenging for small businesses right now. Those important characteristics of our individual small towns. If we don't have much flavor, how do we add to that local flavor going forward with this new environment? And most importantly, from all of you attending, what are the critical pieces that you may need help with? What can we help lift into place to complete the puzzle that you have before you in keeping your small towns great, making them even better, and getting past our current challenges to a bright future for all of our communities? I leave you with those questions because those are things that I know many of us are curious about. And I know all the experts we brought together are up to the challenge. I hope you have a fantastic summit today. I'm excited to hear from our speakers. And with that, Andrea, I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thank you, Chuck. You gave us a lot of questions, and I'm looking forward to getting a lot of answers from our speakers today. First, businesses need customers to thrive, but how do you make sure they come during a global pandemic? Today's first group of presenters considers attracting people to your downtowns through tourism, special events, and festivals before, during, and after a pandemic. presenters from the Texas Events and Festivals Association, and the cities of Tomball, Mcallen, and Navasota will explore how events are evolving and driving community economies. Leading off the conversation will be Mike Baxter, Director of Marketing and Tourism for the city of Tomball.
First off, I want to thank everybody for inviting the Texas Festivals and Events Association to be a part of this webinar today. For a little background, Tomball is a small town of about 11,000 people, 28 miles northwest of the city of Houston. And up until 10 years ago, the city of Tomball was known primarily as that little town that you pass through on the way to the Renaissance Festival. But that all changed back in 2011 when the city decided to take hot funds and for the first time to create a marketing and tourism department. And a part of that program was to develop a series of festivals and events in addition to the normal advertising, public relations, things that we would do like that. And from the very start, the city of Tomball's marketing program was designed not just to entertain, but to be a true marketing tool that would bring people to Tomball maybe for the first time, and therefore they would see all the fun things to see and do and what we had to offer here, and then they would come back at a later time and spend their money here. So all of our festivals and events have no admission charge whatsoever, because we know that on the back end, when these folks do come back to town, that they'll be spending money in the shops and restaurants, and then we'll be getting tax dollars on the backside from that. The plan was to create the awareness and let people realize that Tomball was actually a location, a destination for fun, and that has really happened. The slogan, our tourism slogan for the city of Tomball, is actually Tomball Texan for Fun, and our mascot, Rusty Rails, is the face of Tomball, is the old railroad town that was created back in 1906. And so we've taken those and really branded that into Tomball becoming a true destination for folks from all over the state and beyond. So the result of the program, the way we put it together, was that we increased our advertising, our social media, and have really made Tomball's downtown area, like I said, a destination. And as a result, the business community is thriving here in spite of the COVID-19 pandemic. There are only 2 empty storefronts on Main Street at this time, and that's only because we had a new building constructed, and the business that was in those 2 locations actually moved to the new building, and they just haven't rented it out yet. Otherwise, Main Street is going and blowing. And what's really cool too is that buildings, not just on Main Street, but 1 block in either direction off of Main Street, are thriving as well. And now an additional street north of that street, so now we're talking 2 blocks north of Main Street. Tomball used to be known as Oil Town, USA, and the big oil boom that hit the city back in the 40s. Exxon Mobil, Humble Oil Company, I guess at the time, came in, and they were among just many oil companies that came in and drilled in the Tomball area, and they built these camp houses for their employees. Well, all of these camp houses along the downtown area are now being converted into new restaurants, shops, boutiques, insurance companies, and so the downtown area continues to grow and has done really well through this whole thing. So that was up until March. And in March, as we all know, the bottom fell out. So our current situation as far as festivals and events is that due to the governmental restrictions related to COVID-19, the city had to cancel 10 major festivals this year, and we had become known as a location for festivals and events. So our 10 major city festivals were canceled, in addition to a number of smaller events that the city stages. 4 major hosted events, including the 2 German festivals that we have here that in themselves bring about 40,000 people per event to the downtown area. And then you're talking about the closure of the downtown, shops, restaurants, things like that in the early days, and even our downtown railroad museum at the depot that has become the largest attraction in the downtown area or in Tomball in general. So all that was closed. The impact was that we lost in festival attendance alone an estimated 200,000 visitors that would have come to Tomball, spent their money here, and hopefully would have come back. So it had a real impact on us. But again, the city didn't lose any revenue from the festivals because we don't charge admission. It's only that tax revenue that was really impacted by that. So what I want to do is just talk about the approach that we've had to take to compensate for what's been going on over the past 9 months. We actually obviously had to shift our direction, and kind of coincidentally, the TFEA conference this year the theme was about shifting when there were problems and not knowing that this was going to happen this year. So it was very timely. With the cancellation of our festivals and events and our marketing program, like I said, we had to shift to totally looking at the program in a different way. We created virtual events and concerts this year that we'd never even considered before, because we were just doing traditional festivals and events like everyone else was. The 4th of July was actually a hybrid event for us, and it was the first event staged for the whole year, whereas normally up to that point we would have already had 3 or 4 major events. What we did was take the 4th of July, we did away with the giant street festival and concert, and then we substituted, we had fireworks only. We set up, allowed vehicles to set up in a drive-in movie sort of situation. We have our own city-owned radio station, so we created a music bed that people could tune to the radio station during the fireworks and prior to the fireworks, in fact, and listen to the music that was going on at the same time as the fireworks. And then we streamed it live on Facebook and several other platforms that we had, so people could stay at home and watch the fireworks and still hear the music from the radio station at the same time. And that alone generated about 4,000 views, in addition to the thousands of people who came and set up around the downtown area. Our Groove Fest, which is a celebration of all things groovy, baby, is an award-winning festival we've had for the past several years. We took the headliner band and then did recorded a concert, a 90-minute concert with them. That's the Fab Five, and we streamed that on the day of the event. We did the same thing with the Tomball Bluegrass Festival, and that showed on Facebook and several other platforms last Saturday. And we're looking to do the same with our holiday tree lighting and Depot Day, which is an event at the museum, and we'll record that and then stream that as well. It's a National Model Railroad Month event, and so we'll be showing the Lionel train setup that we have there and all the work that went into it and how it operates and all. So we've increased our social media presence on our 2 major Facebook pages. That's Tomball Texan for Fun, and then the City of Tomball info pages. So those numbers have grown substantially over the last 9 months. I believe last count we had about 16,000 people at the Tomball Texan for Fun site, just to keep up to date with what we're doing. And then we have our YouTube and Flickr sites and Instagram sites as well. Over the course of the past 9 months, we've created more than 50 short videos. These are anywhere from a minute to 3 minutes long, and we direct people to go there just to get information on, for example, COVID for sure, but on hurricane preparedness, on the history of Tomball, the shops that are opening and things like that. And they were easy to produce and they're easy to place on social media, and they've had a lot of traffic going to these things. We're creating new events that will go streamed, such as our story time at the depot. We have our volunteers at the depot actually dress in costume, and this is period costume from like early 1900s anyway. And so we're going to start doing not only book reading to kids about railroad themed books, but we're going to create our own stories as well, with mascot Rusty Rails as the primary person that's telling the story and there in the story itself. We've developed new programming and PSAs for the city-owned KTTF FM radio. That's 95.3 FM. It's a low-power station that reaches out anywhere from 5 to 10 miles from downtown, and just depends on which way the wind's blowing. And so these things, we have a kind of an eclectic music base playing now as our basic programming, but we're creating programs with our news partner, Community Impact News, and we will be doing a weekly news brief update that will run recorded throughout the week. We're doing interviews with local business owners, newsmakers, and personalities. We'll be telling stories about the different city departments and our first responders, emergency updates, for example, hurricanes, and we're working with our partners at the Tomball Independent School District and over at Lone Star College Tomball to create programming as well. So this is keeping people informed as far as what we're doing in the downtown area and in the city as a whole. One thing that has been very important for us is that we've continued to network and work closely with our festival and tourism partners locally and around the state. And that includes folks like the Texas Festivals and Events Association around Houston, Houston First. That group is a group of 14 smaller communities that surround Houston, and we all work together and put our dollars together so that we can continue to advertise and promote ourselves as a group versus trying to spend the money individually, you know, and then we can go to trade shows together and things like that. The Texas Travel Alliance, and then TRAPS, the Texas Recreation and Parks Society. And then we're constantly continuing to work with our downtown business partners and our hotels, finding out what their needs are, how we can help them, and just working together. So as a side note, the downtown Tomball is doing seriously remarkably well. The mom and pop restaurants had a solid base of customers throughout the early days of this the COVID shutdown as such. So they were able to stay in business. We only had one smaller restaurant go out of business, and it was already having problems even before this, and so they just took this as an opportunity to get out. And that building has already been taken over by another restaurant that'll be opening soon. The small shops, our antique shops, they're seeing record sales right now. Hotel occupancy is pretty much like most around the Houston area in the mid 40s to the 50% range. But luckily for our hotels, some weekends we're hitting 100% occupancy because of the return of sports tournaments and weddings. That we have a number of wedding facilities here on the north side, northwest side. So that's doing really well. And building permits, both residential and commercial, are really up here. In fact, we're getting a new brewery and a new distillery here. The brewmaster from Carbach Brewing, a 1999 graduate of Tomball High School, has decided to open his own brewery here. And so that's been approved by council. And then Whitmire Distillery is also relocating from down in the Champions area to Tomball. So things are looking really good there. So that's pretty much all I have. So I think it's, I need to pass this program over to Joe Vera. Joe?
Joe, your microphone is muted. You might need to unmute so we can hear you.
All right, thank you. Good morning. On behalf of the City of Mcallen and the Texas Festival Events Association, we are very honored and pleased to be part of the Rural Small Town Downtown Revitalization Summit. 2020 has been a year of harsh realities. We are having to deal with the heartbreaking reality of the pandemic, hurricanes, flooding, and the economy. Almost every aspect of festivals and events have been impacted by COVID-19, from cancellations to messaging to operations to interaction. And as Governor Abbott's opening guidelines change, we must adhere to the state policies, and we've been faced with a challenge of modifying our guidelines and being able to follow state, regional, and local orders and mandates. I would say that we are probably on our local guideline here. We're probably on number 13 or 14 of the different plans that we've put together. We've tried to establish a clear path forward, but in reality, there is no clear path. Things change daily, and we're learning something new every day. We're having to be flexible. Our reopening guidelines, as I say, have changed. And we started submitting our reopening guidelines to the governor's strike force to open Texas back in April. So from April to now, we've gone through 14 different plans, having to modify our plans and trying to see how we can get to open our events in our community in a safe way. Our goal is to provide the safest possible experience for our guests, our staff, our volunteers, our artists, vendors, and entertainers. COVID-19 has harshly reminded us, though, that events play a vital role in our communities. Humans crave social interaction and connection to each other. And that meaningful experience is exactly what our events help create. Some of our strategies here in Mcallen have been communication. Back on March 13th, we started working on a crisis management campaign communication plan. And that following Friday on March the 22nd, we actually launched our first phase of that campaign, which was a campaign of comfort today and recovery tomorrow. The Make the Most campaign was Make the Most of Mcallen campaign was something that we launched here. Our phase 2 was a recovery, and it was promoting new best practices that we had identified here in the city of Mcallen. And phase 3 was using our events to keep our community bonded. So we've had virtual events, reimagined events. We're measuring the impact that these events are having on our community. And we believe that events will be the catalyst for revitalizing our communities going forward. And as we move forward, we need to engage city leaders, elected officials, chambers of commerce, CVBs, downtown organizations, EDCs, festival and civic-based nonprofit organizations to join forces and come together and help each other out. And that is some of what we're doing here in the community as we try to get all of us through the storm that we're facing. So 2020 has forced us to rethink and reimagine how we represent our events. We'll dive into the steps to consider and possible strategies to implement as we have here in Mcallen in planning your event reopenings. With this, I'll turn the program over to Karina.
Karina, you are also muted if you're trying to say anything.
I am. I was on a roll. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Yes. So the first phase of our outreach campaign was definitely focused on comfort and how can we provide information to residents and those visitors who are accustomed to visiting our city for various reasons. Through our co-op marketing program that was created a few years ago here within the city of Mcallen to ensure that our message was consistent across the different departments within the organization, and those departments that are part of the co-op, that has become highly successful and was definitely the driving force behind the Make the Most of Mcallen campaign that I'll tell you about in just a moment. Include our Explore Mcallen, which focuses on our retail development goals, our Public Works Department, our Parks and Recreation Department, Library, Mcallen Convention Center District, and Mcallen Performing Arts Center, the International Bridge System, Mcallen CVB, the Chamber of Commerce, our Public Utilities Department, our Transit Department, and our Airport Department. Coming together to achieve this goal of providing that message of comfort, we were able to unite with a shared vision and a clear objective. The Make the Most community outreach campaign was created to ensure that residents were quickly informed about the key community service programs that were available to them, while providing them comforting leadership through this pandemic emergency that we found ourselves in. The Make the Most campaign detailed the city's response to the crisis in terms of water and food security, free neighborhood Wi-Fi, live stream recreation programs, and the various offerings that you see on the screen. What we did was we knew that students would be out of school and needed to have access to their classrooms through the internet. So there were various Wi-Fi hotspots installed throughout the city and continue to be installed to make sure that we're reaching all parts of the city and all students who need this availability to them. The Mcallen Independent School District immediately activated to provide free grab-and-go meals in over 40 locations around the city. And this continues to go on to date. We also have 3 community centers here in our city who have a senior population that is used to visiting daily and spending time there and staying active. And we wanted to make sure that those seniors who had become accustomed to receiving the meals that they receive at those community centers continue to have the opportunity to do that. So since March, we have served an average of 300 meals 3 times a week to our residents. We did see an upswing in terms of, and I think it can be attributed to our Make the Most campaign and the promotion of this opportunity for seniors. We at certain point in time reached over 600 meals per day at our community center and being distributed to our senior population who needed those meals. We also wanted to make sure that our residents knew the different availability for restaurant delivery and curbside. Explore Mcallen facilitated an ongoing list that continues to be updated to date to keep everyone informed. The Mcallen Chamber of Commerce had a business portal which offered vital resources to the businesses who needed additional support during this time. The Mcallen Parks and Recreation implemented a new program called Unplugged Home Activities, which is 3 videos, 3 times a week, videos that were for exercise, activity, arts and crafts, all of the different things that our residents would be accustomed to participating in within our community centers. Actually, tomorrow, Unplugged will be celebrating its 100th episode, so that's an exciting point in time for that program that really was created in response to our operations changing that March 15th. Also, we saw, as I'm sure everyone saw, our initial reaction when there's an emergency is go out and buy all the water you can and everything like that. So we definitely wanted to make sure that everyone knew that the City of Mcallen water was safe to drink. There was no reason to, buy out all of the water bottles in the stores. So there was a direct message created specifically for that. Also, our Mcallen Public Library activated a virtual library where residents could explore their virtual services, ebooks. They also created a video program with live storytelling and different activities. So all in all, this became an abundance of offerings that we were able to provide the message to our residents. To date, the free grab and go meals for MISD is serving about 20,000 meals, which is just an amazing undertaking that the Mcallen district has taken on and continues to serve those 20,000 meals weekly. So next up, we have a video that we want to share with you. This was the initial video that was pushed out that first week, that March weekend, when we all adjusted our operations here in the city of Mcallen. And our Make the Most campaign continues to raise awareness and support Mcallen's businesses. So we want to share this video with you all.
Mcallen feels different today. The national emergency is changing everyday life in a place known for being social and open. But changing how we live doesn't change who we are. A community that makes the most of each day. We're making the most of our time at home, sharing the little things that bring us closer. We're living apart, but joining together to keep Mcallen safe until the day when this emergency has passed. Until then, we'll make the most of Mcallen.
Am I back on my presentation?
You were. You are now.
Yes. So Make the Most video to date has been seen over 30,000 times, specifically on our Facebook page, in addition to YouTube and various other platforms where it can be viewed. We're really proud of it. It definitely sent the message that we wanted to convey at that point in time to everyone in our region. And it was highly successful for that aspect, and definitely helped us reach our goal of our first phase in terms of comfort. To date, the Mcallen Make the Most of Mcallen campaign has had over 37 million impressions across different mediums, including TV, radio, billboard, social media, email, text, and print. These were definitely reflected in different videos. I have a link there on my screen where you can see all of the different videos that were created for the different messaging that we wanted to make sure was conveyed to our residents. There was a Make the Most of Mcallen safely, Make the Most from home, Make the Most for senior meals, grab and go meals, unplugged, and of course the quality water. Thanks to the complete Make the Most campaign, the City of Mcallen Co-op group that I mentioned before earned 2 prestigious awards at the Texas Association of Convention and Visitors Bureau's virtual annual conference Idea Fair in August. The TACVB Idea Fair features the top marketing campaigns for destination marketing organizations across Texas in a variety of categories, including sports marketing, convention marketing, local awareness, tourism, of course, and new in 2020 COVID-19 messaging, which definitely, we want the messaging to directly affect those other categories. Mcallen won the Judge's Choice Award in the COVID-19 messaging category with our community outreach campaign, Make the Most. The campaign also received the event's top honor of Judge's Choice Award for Best Overall Project by unanimous decision out of 151 entries across all budget categories that were received from cities around Texas. So we were very proud and happy about the work that we did regarding the Make the Most campaign and continue to do to ensure that our residents stay informed. Now on to recovery. Currently, we have our Mask Up campaign, which is in progress and is utilizing the different mediums utilizing for Make the Most: TV, radio, billboard, social media, email, and print. Along with a recovery version of the Mask Up campaign, which what we did for that is we went around and really centered it around the essential employee, our parks department, our those that are maintaining our parks facilities, our community centers, our entertainment venues, our airport staff, everyone around the city who's making sure that these facilities that residents are coming into are a safe place. Along with the recovery version of Mask Up, we also have our I Know a Place brand that is something that we always look to for positive messaging and really driving that tourism to our city. So we have created an advertising campaign around that, which when the time comes will make up our responsible return to commerce in the appropriate way for that specific time. These both of these campaigns frame Mcallen's health and safety protocols in optimistic imagery, like I mentioned before, and friendly language to help normalize beneficial behavior like mask wearing, curbside pickup, and other best practices during this time. They also promote safety for guests and residents enjoying both city services and local businesses, bridging the gap between public and private interests with a universal message. Now, our third phase was reaching out through special events, and Yahaira will continue the presentation to discuss our efforts for that.
Good morning. I oversee the Mcallen Convention Center, the Mcallen Performing Arts Center, and Quinta Mazatlan, which is an urban sanctuary with a mansion and has become a destination area for special events and for weddings. At the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, these venues were the first to close. Prior to COVID, these facilities would bring in over 600,000 guests each year, and we had started new festivals in 2019 and we're on pace for a record-breaking year in 2020, but 2020 had different plans for us. And with that, over the course of these last 7 months, we have worked diligently to reimagine how we present events and how to make use of these spaces. Now, managing public assembly facilities with mass gatherings during times of COVID has been extremely difficult. Indoor facilities, mass gatherings are definitely on the side of a higher risk. So we need to figure out how to manage these events and these facilities adequately. We have looked at everything from HVAC, making sure that we have actuators that can bring in indoor or outdoor air into the facility, changing out HEPA filters, making sure that we have UV lights in there so that it kills viruses and bacteria, as well as all of the communication that we have indoors. The venues that we represent have the availability for flexibility. And what that means is that we're able to separate people in physical distances. And so we have worked diligently to put together a recovery plan. Last week, we announced the Together Again Safety Initiative. We have over 200,000 square feet of indoor space available and over 20 acres of beautiful outdoor space, which makes us the most equipped venue and complex in our area to be able to follow proper physical distancing guidelines for events in our region. And as we look to open our doors, we've we have a few different plans in mind, and the first is a phased reopening. We have evaluated a phased reopening, which measures physical density in the area, physical distancing as well, and making sure that we limit our event seating capacities. The gradual reopening is based on health and government agencies and will comply with local, state, and federal guidelines. The second is cleaning and sanitation protocols. We have enhanced our cleaning and sanitation protocols in the facility, as well as enhanced sanitation in high traffic areas, added hand sanitizing station throughout the venues, and are working with vendors to ensure the uninterrupted supply of PPE and cleaning supplies. We've also had extensive employee training and health protocols. Our Together Again campaign is a 43-page document that really just outlines exactly what the steps are in terms of training and health protocols. And we also have added screening and prevention support. The screening and prevention support includes thermal temperature checks, screening questions as well when people come into these facilities. And so we'd like to play a video of our campaign as we're getting ready to reopen the facilities.
We're missing the most important part of every performance. You. You are why the Mcallen Performing Arts Center brings experiences to life in the Valley's most beautiful venue. And now, you are what will bring these experiences back to South Texas. The Together Again Safety Initiative is our promise to put your safety first at every future show. Because even at a distance, you're the reason for everything we do, until we're together again.
By not only bringing people together, but by educating and inspiring our youth and providing performance spaces for our artists. Over the last 8 months, we have lost a total of 150 events, which translates to over $40 million in economic impact to the region. We're seeing that our hotels have gone from single-digit occupancy to now occupancy in the 70% region, which is fantastic. And as we get ready to open again, we have put together our first and second initiative that we'd like to go over with you today. Our first initiative is a hybrid event, which is Fiesta de Palmas. We moved the event from September to November 7th and 8th to be able to present the event in a safe way. This particular 2020 edition is called Together at a Distance. And Karina, if you can go to the slides, we can talk about what the event has to offer. We included 5 different elements into the event. The first element is a virtual element. We've got with all of our local artists, as well as community dance schools and community theater, to be able to put together a fantastic educational program and live concert program that is a virtual event. We also talked to our retailers and our hotel industry to be able to engage with our artists, with our community, by being able to offer free incentives to watch and win as we're going through our virtual program. The second initiative is a food truck fest. This is all happening on site November 7th and 8th. The Food Truck Fest is a drive-through event. Now, every food truck has their own lane. You can pre-purchase your food and go through the lane to be able to get your food and enjoy the event. The next event is a hybrid event that used to be called Beer Around the World. It was a fantastic event where you can sample beer and taste different samples of food from different restaurants in the area. So this year, what we've done is created a Fiesta beer box and scavenger hunt. Now, the Fiesta beer box would include the samples of beer so that the community can taste the beer, but we've included a scavenger hunt, which has our ticket buyers going to different restaurants in the area looking for clues. And the idea here is to be able to stimulate sales for the restaurants that participate in the scavenger hunt. The next is a live edition. And so the live edition, if you go to the next slide, the live edition is a social distance concert, and the social distance concert includes 10-foot pods that are event pods that you can purchase for up to 8 people. Now, we have included 50 pods that are available for sale, and it's our first attempt to have a live event on site. It's outdoors, it's social distance, it's safe. We do have mandatory face masks, and there will be temperature checks available. And the last initiative is a dinner on a riverboat. These riverboats are called trajineras. They are synonymous with a region in Mexico City called Xochimilco. They're huge. They're a huge tourist area, and we have included a dinner on this boat. Now, the idea is that these boats are also event pods. They're social distance, and it allows people to be able to gather safely and be able to enjoy a ride on the riverboat as well as have dinner on the riverboat. So these are the different initiatives that we're planning for phase 1. This is going to happen next week. And the second initiative is to reopen the Mcallen Performing Arts Center. At the Mcallen Performing Arts Center, we have a total seating capacity of 1,800 people. We are reopening with 250 seats. The seats are at first come, first serve. And we will be killing every other row as well as 3 seats on the side of each event pod and group. Again, the major component here is communication. This won't work if we do not have the proper communication as people are driving up to the area. Communication will be available in the parking lots. We also have intercom communication and signage throughout the venues to make sure that people wear their face masks and are also physically distanced from other groups. And the last thing that we're currently doing is making sure that we make the most of our outdoor events and our outdoor spaces. We have included themed trails at our nature center, and these themed trails have been extremely popular. Right now we have an event called Sticks and Bones, and so as you're walking through the trails, you are educated on what you're looking at in terms of the flora and fauna, and there are many picture opportunities and Instagrammable moments for you to be able to take pictures at. These theme trails have increased our visitors by 600%. What we're looking at is people are really dying to be able to go to outdoor events and really just get out of the house. And so 600% has been absolutely amazing. One of the things that we see here in our venues is that the only thing certain is the uncertainty. So we're continuously improving what we're doing and changing as we see that we need to change based on the new rules and regulations and guided by the pandemic. So I'll take it back to Karina to talk about our next event.
Thank you, Haida. We have hosted the Mcallen Holiday Parade presented by HEB for the last 6 years. We're currently in year 7 of this event that has truly become a tradition for everyone in our region and many visitors who make the trip down to see us that first weekend of December. It is an event that we as a team take great pride in just because of the amount of, for lack of a better way to say it, the amount of memories that are created throughout that weekend and the possibilities that are available for our residents who may not be able to see a helium balloon or travel somewhere else to see these kinds of high level elements go, down a parade route. So when it came time to reimagine this event and figure out how we would represent it to our community and stay connected with our attendees who have made this a tradition for them, we really had to envision what it would look like and how it would still maintain the level of the Mcallen event that has become the norm. Traditionally, we have hosted over 250,000 people to the event. And so how would we move forward during this time? So we've created different options and presented those to our city commissioners and really got feedback in terms of what they felt our residents would welcome and be happy to see. And this is what we presented at our press conference last week, announcing what the Mcallen Holiday Parade presented by HEB will look like in 2020. Quick video for you.
Christmas is a time for peace, family, and imagination. Now it's time for some holiday reimagination. Welcome to the interactive 2020 Mcallen Holiday Parade, presented by HEB at the South Pole of Texas. This year, your family can participate in an all-new interactive holiday experience from the comfort of your home when the new interactive parade premieres live from the Mcallen Convention Center's illuminated Oval Park. For the first time ever, your family will choose which of the parade's 30 giant character balloons will twirl for the Vuelta, the Mcallen Holiday Parade's famous spinning tradition. See 48 illuminated floats, message celebrity guests, and watch live performances from the stars of South Texas music. And experience the thrill of interactive games, surprises, and new ways to see yourself on live TV. Millions of viewers will be watching nationwide when we share Mcallen's culture and holiday cheer, including broadcasts in New York, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and more. The new interactive 2020 Mcallen Holiday Parade, presented by HEB, premieres December 5th.
So, of course, a positive guest experience is always at the forefront of everything that we do. The Mcallen event standard is something that, as a team, we take very, very seriously. So we definitely want to ensure that the safety measures that Yahaira mentioned previously are something that continues to be implemented in our special events. Some of the best practices that will be implemented for the Mcallen Holiday Parade in 2020 will be temperature checks, physical distancing, cleaning, and sanitizing. We wanted to make sure that the Mcallen Holiday Parade would continue to be an interactive event. We found the opportunity. Traditionally, our holiday parade has been included the route of our stadium to make sure that we have those stadium seats available for live viewing, and our 1.5 mile route down our Bicentennial Boulevard, as you see there in the center of the screen. We found obviously that the Bicentennial route would not be functional for this year, and we definitely see an opportunity for an enhanced broadcast at our Mcallen Convention Center facility. So in 2020, our route has changed to coincide with a new 40-day illuminated drive-through that will be implemented at the Mcallen Convention Center. The illuminated fixtures will be set at the convention center and will set the perfect backdrop for a Mcallen Holiday Parade. This year, the route will run a total of 689 feet from start to finish for the benefit of the broadcast. It will include 48 illuminated floats that are created by our creative and innovative team at our Mcallen Float Studio, and they'll come to life on the screen for all to enjoy. The Vuelta, which has become a tradition here in Mcallen, of the giant character and specialty helium balloons dancing on the street, will, as the video said, become an interactive experience. We will continue to have musical performances virtually This is something that has definitely been an attraction for all of our attendees who visit our Christmas in the Park festival, which is adjacent to the parade route. We typically see in the day before the event, over 40,000 people come out to the musical performances, the food vendors, all of that. We hope to be able to move forward with that next year. We will, as you have seen, I'm sure, in Major League Baseball and major leagues across the US and the world, we will have cutouts of our attendees who will line the oval, and we will also line the oval park with giant LED screens so that parade attendees can log on from the comfort of their homes and see and be seen at the Mcallen Holiday Parade during these times, keeping our attendees safe and socially distanced. We definitely initiated conversations with new markets as soon as we knew that we would be going virtual. This was important for many reasons, to continue to reach our attendees in this new way, and of course continue to provide the return on investment that our partners have become accustomed to when it comes to the Mcallen Holiday Parade. The parade is traditionally broadcast in the Rio Grande Valley and the top 31 Telemundo Telexitos markets across the country. We initiated conversations with media partners in new markets and secured delayed broadcasts in San Antonio, Laredo, Corpus Christi, Dallas, and various Nexstar Media Group markets across Texas. So we last year had over 22 million viewers on our normal broadcast times, and we expect that number to increase with these new markets, of course. And what has become a fan favorite at our event are the celebrity guest experiences. We will continue in 2020 with, once again, featuring those celebrities as guest commentators and presenters. So we look forward to our new Mcallen Holiday Parade. And now I'll pass it on to Kate, who has some important Texas Festival and Event Association information for everyone. Kay, you're muted.
I did it too. I said I wasn't going to do it. I'm sorry. Once again, thank you to the 4 speakers from TFEA, Mike Baxter, Joe Vera, Karina Jimenez, and Yahaida Flores Delgado. Thank you for taking the time to come out and share. And thank you, attendees, for allowing us to be here today. The Texas Festival and Events Association is an official affiliate of the International Festivals and Events Association, a professional trade association for Texas-based festivals, fairs, and event planners, volunteers, and suppliers. All Texas members are also members of IFEA, providing both local support and activity and a global industry. TFEA has 550 plus members throughout the state, and IFEA encompasses over 5,000 worldwide. TFEA's mission is to educate, connect, and inspire our festival and events community. And our vision is to be at the forefront of developing leaders and strengthening the festival and event industry. What you heard today is from TFEA members, and there is so much more out there to experience. Our members are all so willing to share information and help others. That's how we get things done in Texas. The top 2 goals for TFEA are education and networking with our members. It has been a difficult 8 months for all of our events and members, as well as everyone else, full of chaos, loss, and uncertainty because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our strength comes from the unity we share as members of TFEA. We are all experiencing disappointments, fears, and challenges, but remain hopeful for better days ahead. We are working to make our industry thrive once again. Working together, we are all stronger. Education and networking remains at the heart of our recovery efforts. In lieu of our canceled statewide conference, we have pivoted to online learning to ensure everyone has access to the knowledge and information they need to move forward. TFEA focuses on unique and impactful education, quality training, and educational opportunities to help build stronger and better events. We have developed the Texas Event Management Institute, which we all call TIMI, and it is now taught in fast-tracked webinars. The Texas Event Management Institute is the educational component of TFEA, along with our conference and the education there. It provides professional development from leading industry experts. The program offers a strong basic understanding and awareness of multiple critical components involved in event planning and management. There are 27 courses within that cover topics that include but not limited to administration, budgeting, leadership, legal considerations, marketing, disability accommodations, risk management, security, ticketing, program development, operations, and sponsorships, and all areas of building it from a dream to a reality. A complete list is on our website, which is www.tfea.org, or you can reach out to me, call or email or text. Once you complete the program, you receive the designation as a Certified Festival and Event Associate. And there are opportunities through IFEA to continue to advance to a Certified Festival and Event Executive. TFEA also hosts COVID-19 Task Force webinars and deep shift conversations with the TFEA board held bi-weekly. And our annual conference, behind-the-scene tours, and regional seminars all are planned with education and networking. Some are not being done right now. That's why we're doing so much in the webinar industry, but it too will come back. The value of being a member of TFEA includes discounted registration rates on the annual statewide conference, dual membership with the International Festival and Event Association, up to 50% discount on education classes and webinars, opportunities to have your work recognized through participating in the annual CALIF Marketing Awards competition. Festivals and events are a cornerstone for cities and communities. They help build community involvement and bring more dollars to your cities through tourism and economic development. TFEA is a voice of support. We advocate for festivals and events in Texas and across the globe. We focus on credibility. Your reputation matters. TFEA, IFEA membership is respected statewide, nationally, and internationally. Who should belong? I like to say anyone who is interested or working in the event industry, but it can be festivals, events, cities and parks, recreation departments, chambers of commerce, CVBs, nonprofit organizations, theme parks, promoters, show producers, agents, entertainment buyers, key event volunteers, and even event management students. Anyone who produces a special event, conference, or convention. TFEA's annual conference, Deep Shift, Disrupt, Innovate, Pivot, has been rescheduled for August 4th through the 8th, 2021. We have been disrupted, and we are innovating and pivoting to move forward to the new norm. We are here to help you, your community, your events, if you would like to join with us. Please contact me through the TFEA office or anybody that you know that the TFEA member, and we'll get you the information you need. Thanks again for letting TFEA and our wonderful speakers be a part of your event today.
Thank you. And we have one more speaker who's going to talk about events before we wrap up with this portion of our webinar. After her presentation, we're going to have a little time for question and answer. So if you have any questions, think about posting them in the question box so that we'll have them ready when Madison finishes. So now we have Madison Brooks from the City of Navasota, who's going to tell us about Navasota navigating COVID-19.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Madison Brooks. I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator for the City of Navasota. So I'm just going to tell you all a little bit about how we have kind of navigated COVID-19 and some events and things that we've done through this time. So first of all, our Navasota Freedom Festival that we had for the 4th of July, obviously after the start of COVID-19 was the first event that we were really able to have. So typically this event had in the past had started in our downtown and ended at our community center, at our community pool. And we had provided free swimming, free hot dogs, bounce houses, things like that. All things that obviously were not feasible this year with our current situation. So we changed the event in a way. We started it at the community center and ended it in downtown with the intention of really boosting our local businesses. So we had that parade that, like I said, ended in downtown with a festival in downtown and then some other aspects throughout the day that I'll get into a little more. But we had masks, gloves, hand sanitizer provided constantly for all guests. Social distancing was required and enforced throughout the event. And we had a great response of people who were able to kind of keep the normalcy of this event that everyone loved, but be open to the changes that COVID presented. So obviously there was a proclamation put forth a few days before the 4th of July. So unlike a lot of places, our mayor did sign a proclamation in order to allow us to still have this event. We had a special council meeting where they deemed it okay for us to continue with this event being as it was outdoors and that we would be able to social distance and put some protocols forth. So at our parade, like I said, we changed the direction with the intention of having people kind of end in our downtown and really support our local businesses who had really struggled through the March, April, May months of the COVID pandemic. Participants were lined up 10 feet apart, so you were encouraged to stay within your family unit. If you were participating in the parade, all spectators were also socially distanced and were required to wear face coverings when social distancing was not possible. These signs that are up here in the right-hand corner were put all along the parade route to encourage people to keep their distance. We also had a day of live music and entertainment from some of our local groups and some different bands throughout the area. This was a great aspect because we really saw that people were able to stay with their family units, bring out lawn chairs, and sit in their own groups, but stay distanced from other groups. Something that was really cool that we also had a cornhole tournament for the first time ever. Participants were required to wear masks and gloves at all times, but all boards and participants were spaced 10 feet apart. They were required to, like I said, keep the protective equipment on at all times. Another aspect that we had was our business bingo. So all of the downtown businesses were provided with an American flag, and then we printed this bingo card in the local paper as well as had them to hand out to attendees, and they were able to go into all the downtown businesses and get their card stamped. Once they had their card completely stamped, they were entered to win a prize. But this was a great opportunity for us to get people into those stores who had been struggling, as well as kind of get some information about where we were getting guests from. Multiple of our local businesses said that this was the best day that they had since they opened. So it was really a boost for them through how they had struggled with COVID. We also had vendors, a few vendor spots open at the festival. The vendors were spaced 10 feet apart to ensure distancing. They were provided with masks and gloves, and were required to encourage social distancing and limit their booth occupancy. We waived the vendor fee in order to encourage people to use this and boost their business. And we really used it as exposure for those local businesses who aren't located in downtown and didn't necessarily benefit from the parade and festival being in downtown, so that they could also benefit from that. Finally, our major part of this event was we had city fireworks for the first time ever. So it was sponsored by local businesses and the city of Navasota. We were able to secure the tallest fireworks to ensure the largest radius of visibility, to encourage people, that were taking more precautions, were able to stay in their car, weren't forced to get out and interact with anybody, but we're also able to enjoy this. This map over here we had printed and posted everywhere so that people knew the best places as far as they could see. We had parks that people could social distance and still be able to enjoy this aspect of the event. Another event that we were able to have was our Kid Fish event. This was on August 8th. As you can see, this was a great opportunity for families to come out and keep their distance, but still kind of feel together. So it was originally scheduled for May 2020, but we pushed it back a few months to give us a little more time. But families, like I said, were able to come out and kind of see each other and enjoy the community aspect of it, but still stay at a safe distance. Participants were also provided with masks and gloves and hand sanitizer, and required to wear face masks when unable to distance. So an event that we are going forward with and we have upcoming is our Home for the Holidays event. Obviously, it's going to look a lot different this year. In 2019 and years past, we have had ice skating, bounce houses, visits with Santa, a lot of vendors, a lighted parade, and a Christmas tree lighting. This year, we're kind of pivoting it more kind of like the the Freedom Festival event, where we're really focusing on benefiting our local businesses. So we are going to encourage a shopping day from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. In downtown. We're going to have live music, holiday specials, free Christmas cookies and hot chocolate. And we're also going to have a storybook walk for the kids for those aspects that we're not really able to continue with, like the bounce houses. So there's going to be a story that's chosen, and the kids get to go around to each store to get a page from the book so that they get to be a part of that storybook walk. And then at 6 p.m., we will continue with our lighted Christmas parade down Washington Avenue with our tree lighting at City Hall, and the Navasota Choir will be singing for that. All COVID precautions will be enforced during that as well. We will have masks, gloves, hand sanitizer available, social distancing, and all of those other aspects in it to ensure that we're keeping our residents safe. So our canceled events, our Treats on the Streets event is a Halloween event that is put on by the Navasota Police Department. It typically brings in about 3,000 people with the kids and parents and everything. So this was an event that we chose to cancel because of the proximity that it is, that it typically happens, and it happens around our city hall and around our streets. And with the number of people that come out for that and the way that they line up, it was just too small of a space for us to be able to maintain social distancing. Additionally, we do not have the manpower to block off a larger section or to enforce that. So that was something that we had to cancel for this year. Finally, some new communication methods that we have come up with through this time. So we started a video series called Grilling Stafford. Our city manager's name is Brad Stafford. And so this is a segment where we get questions submitted to the local radio stations and newspaper, and they come on each week with our city manager, and they're able to present those questions to him, and he gives answers right there. And it's uploaded every Thursday on our Facebook page, our website, and all other social media. This has been, it came forward through COVID because there were a lot of people that just had a lot of questions about a lot of things, but it's really turned into people are able to ask questions about anything. They're able to ask about specific roads. They're able to ask about what's going on and just all kinds of things. So this happens weekly. We also use it to make major announcements about our events. We hold our Texas Birthday Bash every March. And so it's our biggest event of the year. It's 2 days of festivals and Texas music, Texas foods, Texas vendors, everything. And so that we're using this platform to make our entertainment announcements about that, any COVID precautions, safety measures moving forward. We're using it as a communication tool for those things. So like I said, it's streamed on Facebook, YouTube, our website, our Shop Local website. We've added new features such as Meet the Staff and Question of the Week to really increase transparency and participation. These are where viewers are able to meet a different person throughout our city staff each week. So, you know, the people that, you know, our utility billing clerks or our public works department, people that they wouldn't necessarily always know, they're getting to meet them and, you know, know more about them and what they do and how they're, how long they've been with the city and everything like that. Currently, we're making more than 2,000 impressions each week with this project and getting a lot of really good feedback from that. We also have a Shop Local Navasota campaign that started at the beginning of COVID. It was in collaboration with our economic development specialists. It's a resource that we've used to really show off and find kind of a one-stop shop for people to find how to eat, shop, and keep their business local. We have the business's hours, their locations, the specials and things that they're offering, just kind of all aspects of staying local through this time. And that is a Texas Downtown Association President's Finalist Award. We are very honored to be nominated for that. Just kind of a look at what that looks like. And finally, our Home for the Holidays event, we have this Navasota Home for the Holidays website that has all information about keeping holidays local in Navasota this year. We have where to shop, all our events, where to eat. This was created in collaboration with our Economic Development Corporation and our Chamber of Commerce. And it just kind of has all the information and kind of protocols and things of how we are planning to move forward. So that's all I have. Thank you all so much for hearing about what we have going on in Navasota.
Right. Thank you, Madison. Thank you to all of our presenters for this portion. I could see that the theme of this, I think, is change and how you're being responsive and how you're being able to engage your communities and how you're making those hard decisions about whether to change your event or just cancel it. And I think that we all probably have lots of questions for you. I know I have lots of questions for you. And if anyone wants to start typing questions in the question box, we can start reading them. We have time to ask questions for our presenters, Mike Baxter with the City of Tomball, Joe Vera with the City of Mcallen, Karina Jimenez with the City of Mcallen Parks and Recreation, Yahaira Flores Delgado with Mcallen Convention Center and Performing Arts Center, Kay Wolf of the Texas Festivals and Events Association, and Madison Brooks with the City of Navasota are here and ready to answer your questions. And Wendy Almanzon with our staff is going to help keep an eye on those questions. Do we have any questions in the question box, Wendy?
Yes, we have 3 so far. The first one is, what tools or resources are you using to keep up with local, regional, and state policies and guidelines regarding health and safety and phased openings and in-person events?
I'll go ahead and answer that. We look at the Open Texas website probably weekly, pretty regularly, to see if there has been any changes to indoor and outdoor events. And we just monitor the CDC, monitor Open Texas. We also have plenty of trade organizations that keep us up to date in terms of what are the latest measures and guidance from the CDC.
Yeah, and I'll say that TFEA and IFEA have a great resource page that you can go to, and they provide daily or weekly updates, and so that's a great resource for us as well.
Okay, thank you. Second question, you mentioned you were able to make sure the parades were broadcast in a way that generates sufficient return on investment for partners, I imagine through ad placements. Are your in-person events able to pay for themselves or generate sufficient revenue with the current reality?
I'll go ahead and answer that. I can speak to the events that we've been having virtually, which you would imagine, you might expect a decline in terms of the sponsorship involvement, but all of our partners are so invested in terms of making sure that the community does have entertainment possibilities. So for our Independence Day celebration and our virtual Halloween festival, which did have a couple of live offerings, which we're wrapping up this week, we did actually cover all of our costs and had some revenue in terms of sponsorships. Our Mcallen Holiday Parade partners are eager and happy to support kind of the overall conversation that we've been having with many of our partners, is that they're happy and pleased that we have gotten creative and reimagined the event in a way that their whole corporate culture would be comfortable with. And we have not seen a high amount of partners who are not going to be participating in the 2020 Mcallen Holiday Parade. The ones that we have seen who are choosing to move their partnership to 2021 are based on the entire corporate kind of approach to events as a whole. So we're very pleased in terms of our corporate citizens and their willingness to participate in our events, and also the opportunity for increased revenue because we have been able to cover our expenses 100% and more.
One of the things I'd like to share on that is that we made sure that we communicated with our stakeholders as we were looking at reimagining the events. We knew and canceling Christmas, for instance, for the holiday parade was not an option. So we only have 3 sponsors out of 44 sponsors that are not coming back for 2020 because of corporate restrictions, but they'll be back in 2021. The rest of them are all in, and the parade is financially sustainable.
Thank you. This question is for Madison. Were you able to keep your citizens safe with so many outdoor activities? Did Navasota have an increase in COVID cases?
We actually did not have an increase in cases at all. Our cases per week stayed pretty steady. We did have a great response of people who were very compliant and very willing to follow the guidelines we were showing, stay distanced, keep the precautions that we were using, and yeah, and overall we had a great response and everything.
Thank you. One last question. With attendance so much lower than usual, if COVID continues or if people take longer to feel comfortable and don't show up as they did before, will these events be able to gain sufficient support to remain? Or is it a matter of just adding more space and using larger open spaces to make it work financially? And this is open to anyone.
We're just, we're just going through this. We've had great response to our events thus far. So we think we'll be able to continue to do well, and we hope to be able to return in 2021. But, in reality, it might be 2022 before we're able to get back to some type of normalcy with our events.
I think Mr. Vera said it well. These events are the catalysts that will bring our community back together, that will heal our community. And it's not about generating revenue right now. It's about being able to provide that support and that these events that generate so much goodwill for our community.
One thing that we talked about in our meeting of Around Houston last week was that a lot of us are funded by the hotel tax fund. And so we're doing what we can to continue promoting and generating those visits to the downtown area. But the overall, it looks like that hotel occupancy, even though it's increasing now, that things, occupancy and conventions, at least in the Houston area, will probably not be back to the 2019 numbers until 24. So, it's just going to be a slow climb back to where we were before and the funding that we all had before.
Thank you all. Andrea, that's all the questions we have at the moment.
All right. Thank you, Wendy. And thank you again to all of our speakers for giving us lots to think about and lots to consider when we're thinking about events and how to bring people or keep people in our downtowns. And so now we're going to move on to the next section of our summit. So if you have people in your downtowns, how do you make sure that your businesses are continue to be supported to move forward with these new and changing conditions? Today's second group of presenters will explore the innovative ideas and opportunities communities and individuals have seen to rise to the challenge we are all facing. Presenters from the Texas Downtown Association and the cities of Dayton and Engleton will share some ideas and success stories highlighting how economies can respond and be resilient during the pandemic. First up, we're going to hear from Mr. Aaron Werner, the president of the Texas Downtown Association, with his presentation, Resiliency is Found Downtown.
All right. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, but we don't see your
Okay.
presentation yet.
Okay, let me get this showing real quick. All right, here we go.
Perfect, thank you.
Perfect, no problem. Thank you, everyone, for being on this webinar, and thank you for inviting us to speak today. And my name is Aaron Werner, and I'm the president of the Texas Downtown Association. For the almost 7 years, I've worked also for the city of McKinney professionally, and I'm in a transition where tomorrow I'll be starting a new position in the city of Denison as the managing director of communications and engagement. So I kind of have a few transitions going on with my contact information. So I've actually included at the end of this my personal email, and I'm happy to answer questions about my presentation beyond this if need be. But today I wanted to talk about the resiliency of our downtowns, and the beginning of my presentation will predominantly speak on my experience of what we did in the city of McKinney and a historic downtown McKinney. But then I'll continue on to some great statewide examples that we pulled from our TDA network. For everyone who's on the webinar, I do want to let you know that the Texas Downtown Association is a statewide nonprofit. We represent around 300 members. Those are communities and towns of all sizes, economic development corporations, chamber of commerce, and small businesses. So we have a vast array of membership, but anyone basically who is interested in revitalization and development of our downtowns. One of the things that I think is most interesting about our current situation and looking back at history is that our downtowns are probably our best example of the different hardships and triumphs that we've gone through as a country. On the screen, this is specifically focused on McKinney, but you could plug just about any community into this. But since its beginning in 1848, historic downtown McKinney has gone through the Civil War, devastating fires, building collapses from fires, World War I and II, the Great Depression, a massive tornado that took out some of our major infrastructure in one portion of our town. And then after all of that, it was abandoned for nearly 30 years after our major bypass was created, which in our area is Highway 75. So downtown went from the center of our city to the forgotten part of our city. Buildings were boarded up. The courthouse in the middle on that bottom picture was the roof caved in, the windows were all broken out, and it was completely abandoned. And then this year, 2020, we experienced another piece of our history that could be added to this slide, and that's the COVID-19 pandemic. But I'm confident that if we've gone through all of this already, that in the end, downtown is going to once again show how resilient it is and come back better than ever. So moving on, I'm going to show you a few examples of how our downtown commercial districts have responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. In McKinney, I remember it like it was yesterday when really everything kind of came to a head with COVID and we knew that we were in a serious predicament. It had an immediate impact on downtown. Sales in our downtown merchants dropped to 20 to 30% of their normal business overnight, and that might be giving a little bit. It was a ghost town, and if you visited our square, most days here are pretty lively and active, and so it was a strange sight to see. Foot traffic completely disappeared. Restrictions were constantly changing, specifically for the different types of businesses between bars and restaurants and commercial retail, occupancy rates, all of those things. So we were, I felt like we were refreshing the government website almost every hour to see what we're allowed to do. And fear settled in throughout our entire community. And so as a Main Street program in a city, we were faced with the question of where do we go from here and how are we going to respond? Typically, we all know that governments move a little slow and that decisions might not happen overnight. And it's easy to dialogue about something that might seem simple for weeks. And so we knew that that was not going to be an option when it came to surviving and supporting our downtown during this time. So one of the things we knew is we had to be innovative. In our downtown, we have a 6-seat electric shuttle seen in that picture that was used to move passengers throughout our downtown from parking lots to businesses, etc. And that service immediately had to stop. We didn't want to put our driver at risk and we didn't want to put people at risk. And we were faced with, do we furlough our driver? How do we continue this? And we had the idea to take our shuttle and turn it into a delivery vehicle for the historic residential district that surrounds our downtown. So immediately we started creating graphics and sharing this out with our merchants that we were going to provide this service. And for the next few weeks, as people were quarantining at home and staying away from crowds, our Dash shuttle was delivering puzzles and pie from Emporium Pies and meals to people's front porches. And all they had to do was call the store, purchase that item over the phone, and then tell them, or Dash would swing by and pick it up with the address and take it to their house. So we saved our driver's job throughout that time. He didn't have to wait, a few weeks to figure it out, and that became one of the most talked about things in our community was that our shuttle was delivering to front porches. We also knew that establishing a large grant program that was going to provide like bigger, substantial grants to our businesses would take a little time. It wasn't going to happen overnight. But what could happen overnight was creating a t-shirt that said support local McKinney and selling that online with the half of the funds going back to small business and the other half going to our local nonprofits. So in total, we raised a little over $26,000 on this program, but $13,000 of that was going back to our local businesses. And then we were faced with how do we distribute that money where it's fair, but also can provide some extra benefits to the businesses. And so we created a Shark Tank style broadcast where it was a live feed. The businesses had to do a quick application, and we chose 20 businesses to participate. Out of that, 12 businesses that were being judged by a panel received $1,000, and then the lucky 13th business received an extra $1,000. So in total, we distributed $13,000 from t-shirt sales, but we did it in a way that provided a marketing piece for the businesses to share with the public how they are responding to COVID. It was a really fun video. We have all of those up on our website if you're curious and would like to see some of the pitches. We knew that we had to be nimble. We didn't have time to really take it slow. So on June 2nd, the McKinney City Council amended our city ordinances to allow open alcohol in public spaces. This was something that we did not have in McKinney, although it was something that we were interested in prior to COVID, and it even had a few conversations about. This also helped that the governor had, at this point, allowed to-go alcohol from restaurants as an extra revenue source. And so now we had patrons who could get to-go food, to-go alcohol, and then enjoy that at our picnic tables spread out throughout the square. Another thing that we did, and many downtowns, probably every downtown at this point did, was curbside parking spaces. This was something we could implement immediately and allowed businesses to have storefront access for patrons to pull up and take merchandise away. If you really think about that, that conversation would have been really difficult pre-COVID, and the concept of giving specific spaces to our specific businesses in downtown would have been a challenge. But this is a great example of how we were able to respond in a way that we typically wouldn't have. Last on here, we created outdoor dining spaces. We closed off small alleyways. We added tables throughout the square around our restaurants so that people could sit outside in the open air where they felt more comfortable. The tables were socially distanced, and it allowed our restaurants a little extra space to serve patrons of McKinney. Back to the grant conversation. Like I said, we knew that a large grant program would take time, but it was something we immediately started working on with a group that was comprised of city manager's office, city council was involved, Main Street, our economic development corporation, our community development corporation. So it was an all hands on deck type of program. And the first one we created was the Mckinney-Strong business grant program. And this offered up to $1,500 for eligible McKinney-based small businesses and $1,000 for home-based small businesses. With this grant, was funded by up to $1 million of unallocated Community Development Corporation promotional funds. That program was easier to put together than our second one. It went over really well, and we actually did 2 rounds of that program and gave out most of our funds. The second one we did was actually a joint project with some of our neighboring cities, McKinney-Allen and Frisco. We called it the Tri-City Program. And this grant was much larger. It offered up to $25,000 to eligible McKinney-Allen and Frisco businesses. And it was funded by up to $5 million in CARES Act money. And this one also went over really well. And we gave out just about all of our funding for that. Another thing is we knew we had to try new things, and I won't go into a whole lot of detail on this because I know that each of you just listened to some really great special event examples, but in McKinney, we did a few things as well. Over the past few months, we have done a few different types of walks, wine, beer, margarita, strolls. These were, the structure of these was changed due to COVID. There were time slots where there was a limited amount of people that were allowed to participate in each time slot. We had check-in locations that were separated throughout the square. The locations to do the tastings were inside our small businesses on the square, so it helped drive some extra foot traffic into our retailers that need that foot traffic. And these have been super popular and very successful. We have had no issues with people not following our COVID regulations that we've set in place. We obviously have our socially distanced and hand sanitizer stations and things like that at all stops. Another thing we did, and this is kind of in partnership with our Performing Arts Center, is we created 4 drive-in concerts over the summer. There's a little rendering there on the right-hand side of what that drive-in setting would be like. Each vehicle had its own 20 by 20 space. The patrons were allowed to get out and sit on one side of their vehicle, so they were separated from other people that were in attendance. And these were super fun. We actually kind of continued our Oktoberfest that we typically would have done in our downtown through a drive-in concert because our other concerts went over so well. We did a reverse parade for the 4th of July where the floats were stationary and the people that were there to enjoy the parade actually drove through the route. And that was super popular, actually more popular than we expected it to be. And that was the challenge, that we had more vehicles than we even knew how to get into our downtown square for the parade. So we learned a lot with that one. We also did a socially distanced Oktoberfest fundraiser. Our program typically raises most of its funding through our Oktoberfest. And so this year we partnered with a local restaurant, and people could purchase tickets and enjoy an Oktoberfest meal, but with their own small group of people. So those are just a few things we did in McKinney to answer the how COVID changed everything about how we operate. And now I want to give you a few great examples from across the state of Texas from our TDA network. And this is the city of Dallas and Bishop Arts District. There are many communities that have done this, but this is an example that actually the picture was voted one of the best little parklets that was designed. And so I wanted to show that. But they allowed temporary parklets, outdoor seating that can reside on or alongside sidewalks to expand outdoor dining to streets. Again, a conversation that might have been really difficult pre-COVID, but a great way for cities to be innovative and creative in this time. Give up parking spaces, give people more space to separate and enjoy the local businesses. So this is a time to experiment. We can take our roads and use them for more creative things. We can put people where cars used to be, allow families and friends to feel safer by having additional space. You've seen examples of that from all over the nation during COVID, specifically in some of our biggest cities. But do some of the things that you kind of always wanted to do, but now you have an opportunity to do. In Fate, Texas, and again, I want to make a little caveat. Almost every community did things like grant programs and curbside pickup and some of the things that I even showed you earlier. But the examples I pulled had a unique twist to them, and I thought they were really neat. So the city of Fate, Texas, did a small business support program where it provided economic relief to small businesses. And they did this through an application process where the city then purchased gift cards from several small businesses up to $5,000 in $50 increments. The city then sold those $50 gift cards to citizens for $15 using an online platform. It was a win-win for both the businesses and the residents. And I thought that was a really creative way to give an economic boost to local businesses. A combined effort of the city of Wiley, Murphy, and Saxe, and then a few other nonprofits, created a program called Team Up to Fight Hunger. They already had local food pantries in their communities, but in an effort to support the struggling restaurants throughout these communities, they created a voucher that they purchased from the restaurants and allowed the people that were visiting the food pantry to receive the voucher and then go and receive a hot meal from these local restaurants. So this program drove traffic to local restaurants affected by COVID and allowed them to maintain their staff throughout that time. Team Up would then reimburse the restaurant for the voucher using the money they raised from individual donations throughout the community. Another great example of a creative way to support your community and your local small businesses. Jacksonville, Texas, their EDC created a program, a lunch reimbursement program as early as March. This program provided an opportunity for employers to feed their staff at a reduced cost and supplied local restaurants with a steady stream of income, keeping many of them afloat throughout the pandemic. To date, the JEDCO has paid 240 reimbursement requests totaling $38,800, which is around $70,000 of restaurant revenue back to the businesses. So again, someone got creative and created a program that obviously worked. And that is all that I have for you today from our examples across the state. There are many, many, many more, and people have done so much to support their downtowns. So I could have added a lot more to that. But one thing is true, we were all forced to be innovative, creative, and do things that were outside of the box in order to survive. And we're still doing that today. So I would be excited to hear some of your examples that you've done in your communities. And before I let you go, I do want to give you a little information on this slide. The Texas Downtown Association typically would have had an in-person conference like many others this year, but we have gone virtual. And that conference is scheduled for November 9th through the 12th. And tickets are available online at texasdowntown.org. And the title of our conference is Revitalize, Reboot, and Reconnect. So if that's something that you would be interested in, we would love to have you. But thank you guys, and I look forward to your questions at the end of this section.
And thank you, Mr. Werner, and thank you for helping us remember that you could see this challenge as an opportunity for innovation and how you've been able to do fun and innovative marketing ideas to help businesses keep their doors open, and the changes in ordinances and policies have also been a big help. Our next speaker is Ms. Kimberly Judge, who's going to help build on that. She's the Assistant City Manager and Director of Development Services for the City of Dayton, and she's going to share more with us about supporting downtown revitalization by attracting visitors. Ms. Judge?
Good morning. How are you? Well, I want to thank you guys, first of all, for allowing Dayton to participate in this particular summit. We're so excited to be here, and we would like to talk about supporting our downtown revitalization by attracting visitors. Dayton is located just east of Houston, and we're going to be west of Beaumont. And one thing about us, we may be a population of 9,000, but we have expanded feelings toward our community and wanting to get back out there and celebrate it. And so what we decided to do is to listen to our citizens. Our citizens told us what they wanted. And so we decided, hey, we're going to listen. They want our community to be back open. So we're going to open up our community for them. So one of the things about Dayton is where we're located. And I told you we're east of Houston, but we're in an area where our downtown is actually located off of Highway 90, one of the major thoroughfares running through Dayton. And because we have about 26,000 in daily vehicle traffic, we had to slow things down and get actually foot traffic moving in our downtown area. As you can see from the photos that I have up front, we are located in an area where we have the planning department downtown, our city hall downtown. We have very minimal businesses, retail businesses downtown, but we need to find a way to support the businesses that we do have. So we decided, hey, we need to get creative, and we want to do it the Dayton style. So we had to create our culture to bring people into our downtown area to support our businesses. And by doing that, we decided to make our customers, which is our citizens, feel normal again. So we had to come up with a good change for them. The plan had to give the people what they wanted, And you wanted them to feel comfortable. You wanted them to feel that they were safe in the environment that we were creating. In our results, we want to aim high. And when I say we want to aim high, we want to support the local businesses. And after we do all this, we decided, hey, why not? Let's celebrate our accomplishments. So in creating that culture, we had to give them a reason to come to Dayton, downtown area. And so we have a citizen committee called the Dayton Enhancement Committee. The Dayton Enhancement Committee, they decided to take a small area that's roughly, I think about 9,500 square feet, and they wanted to beautify the area. Like I said before, we're located off a major corridor, and we want to beautify the area, break up some of the concrete, some of the asphalt, and beautify the area. So they came together and they placed in this 9,500 square foot area wayfinding sign to talk about Dayton, rich history. They did a lot of planning, had seating area here. And one of the greatest things that we did was put up this wayfinding sign to talk about how far we are from major cities. One of the slogans we use here in Dayton is that our roads lead to Dayton, in which it does. We have Highway 90, Highway 146, State Highway 321. But all these roads, if you're traveling to the south from Dallas, or you're traveling north from Galveston, these roads going to lead you right here to Dayton. So to bring that foot traffic, we want to give them an environment that they would want to come down to our downtown area to experience what we all love. So we knew we had to change our environment a little bit more to get more people in our downtown area. We have a street that ran between City Hall and the planning department. This particular street was causing traffic issues for Highway 90, so we did something about it. City Council elected to go ahead and close that particular road to try to eliminate some of the traffic issues that we was experiencing, and also help to slow movement down as well. Being a community with a small population, we don't have a lot of funds available to us. So we really decided we was going to get creative. So we got the help of some of our local businesses in creating seating areas, planters, gates for the road closure. We actually had city staff, and a lot of the staff spouse came and offered their support and helped create some of these things downtown, which it turned out very nicely. And I'll get to those photos to show you those in a little bit. So the plan, we needed a parking lot transformation. This parking lot during Monday through Thursday serve as staff parking and also parking for our customers, our contractors that come and pull permits. But we need to transform it and make it into an area to hold our food trucks. Now, mind you, before the pandemic, we had Food Truck Friday, but we know we had to come up with a way of doing it where we could actually make people comfortable, let them feel safe. So we did the typical thing, as you find in a lot of communities, was we put spacing 6 foot apart where each food truck would be located. We also provide seating. The seating, we didn't put as many of our tables out that we normally would do, and we also tried to space those as well. But one of the things about doing this, we kept hearing from our citizens, hey, we need more seating. We want to see more. We want more trucks, but we want to be safe as well. So that abandoned, well, I'm not going to say abandoned, but the closed road that we turned into the Crossroad Plaza became an area where we can put additional seating. And it turned out very nicely. Hopefully you guys are able to see the photos that show that the citizens came out, they took advantage of the seating, and more people began to show up. And remember, this little area where we have the umbrellas and the picnic tables, it's roughly about 14,000 square feet. So it's not a very large area, but it served a purpose of more seating for our community. And remember, it's all about bringing that foot traffic to support the small businesses within the area. And one of the things about it, the food trucks, we kept saying, do we have that many food trucks within our area that would support a Food Truck Friday? And you know what? We provided the location, and come to find out, we did. You bill it and they would come. What we did was provide electricity for them free of charge and a place to come and set up on every Friday. We hold this Food Truck Friday from 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, where actually the time that they get here and set up, if it's at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whenever they want to open up, they're welcome to do so, and the majority of them, they do. We have everything from barbecue to snow cones to Cajun food. We even have a lobster truck that shows up on occasion. And you can always tell when they're here because, I mean, the people, they show up. They will come. And one of my favorite places I want to bring up too is the hippie burger. Oh, that is so delicious. But we built it and it came. The citizens appreciated the idea that we opened back up again. We had some of the people was kind of curious at how we was going to pull this off, being that they felt we was going to have parking issues because we've now taken up the parking lot. We had to be creative with the spacing and it took up more room. But as I'm about to show you, you have an event, people will find a place to park. Do not let that disturb you or stop you for putting on an event. Because on a typical work week, as you can see in one photo, you see a police car and you see not much else at that location. But as Friday approaches, you see how the cars have now parked alongside of the road there. And the next location is the same. You see how cars found a place to park. And if you look at the bottom photos, you notice that this is a parking space that's behind the planning building. So you give them something to come out to, and they'll find a way of getting over all the obstacles or hurdles that there may be. And so the results that came from our visioning, from our planning, from the construction, providing that environment, that culture for people to come back, know that it's okay to come back out, was appreciation from our local businesses, from our citizens, from the vendors that came out. We gave them a place to gather again. Everybody was tired of being locked up, cooped up in their homes. So people was very grateful for that. Also, we incorporated the safety measures for them as well, so people felt comfortable. And also it did increase the revenues, and it gave everybody a sense of normalcy as well. You know, just to give you an idea of what took place, because you say, how do you measure the success of you reopening your community? Well, we went out and we talked to a couple of our local business owners that are downtown, and our plumbing company, Bear Plumbing, he's expressed his gratitude to us by making us aware that he had new customers because people would come to Food Truck Friday, sit at City Hall under a gazebo, and they noticed his sign. And so he got new customers because we provided that foot traffic downtown so people would know that they are there. We also have one business, it's a boutique downtown. They also did some virtual shopping that you can do, curbside pickup, but more people are aware of this new business that is located downtown due to us opening up the community again. So open up community. Everyone's been enjoying themselves. Vendors are excited. They're able to make money again. A lot of folks thought they would be closing their doors are now realizing that they're able to stay open. And so what we're going to do next, we're going to celebrate. We had a Friday night bites right before the pandemic took place. And so our citizens been asking for us to bring it back. And so what we're going to do come December the 11th is bring it back to them. We're going to have our food trucks come out at night. We're going to have a DJ, and we're going to have just a great time, socializing, gathering, and most of all, again, trying to keep everybody safe, but letting them know that we have now opened our community because we strongly believe that for revitalization in the downtown area has to be supported. And in order for us to support that, you have to have activities, you got to have foot traffic, and give a person a reason to be there. So we want to say thank you again for allowing us to participate in this summit. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing what you're doing there with your beautification and signage and infrastructure, just making downtown be a place people want to be. And when you say build it, they will come, that's such a true story anytime, and especially right now. And I think, like you said, we're all in this together, and that's what we have to keep remembering to be able to thrive. And we have one more speaker who's going to build upon that. And after that, we will have question and answers for this group of presenters. But we have next is Martha Amy, Director of Communications and Marketing for the City of Engleton. And she's going to tell us more about looking for helpers. Martha?
Hey, everybody. I think when I was asked to speak about our COVID response, and I was trying to think back, what's happened over the past several months and how Engleton responded, this quote from Mr. Rogers came to mind, and we actually used it in our city publication, Inside Engleton. And it just talked about when he was a boy and he would see scary things, his mom would say, look for the helpers, you'll always find people helping. And I think that in a community that is experiencing something that is unprecedented globally, I mean, we've never seen anything like this, and we didn't have information about it. Nobody knew what to expect. It was affecting everyone in ways that they couldn't anticipate. So they were fearful. And so how did we address the fears and move forward? So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So health and safety. First and foremost, we had a plethora of information that we were sending out and communications about COVID-19 from all of the resources that you can imagine. Anywhere we could find information or what people were doing, how we could inform our citizens, we were sending it out. But there was so much information coming out. Again, we wanted to make sure that we had a positive message and that we were saying, hey, we're here for you. We're in this together. You'll see our city managers in the center of this photo here in our Mask Up Engleton campaign in the bandana and the sunglasses. Chris Whitaker, he's been a great leader and helping us to know that we are a team and that we're going to set the example as a city staff. And this is our leadership team that was donning their masks to show the public when we were having outcry about people not being sure about this mask thing and what is, is this an infringement? That we were part of this too, and that we were going to set the example. So On the Mask Up Engleton campaign, you'll see that some of the information that we put out here. Another thing that we did was we tried to bust some of the myths. I mean, there was a lot of misinformation out there about mask wearing and use and the disease itself or the virus itself. What would happen? What was the information that was coming out? Was it actually accurate? So we did a myth-busting campaign to try to inform our citizens as well, always trying to keep something in front of them and good information out there. Business impact. We started the dialogue with our businesses early on when we knew this was coming down the pipe, and they were fearful and they didn't know what was going to happen. Was the governor going to say that they had to shut down? What did that look like? Would they be able to keep their businesses open? So we started an early dialogue. We talked to them about changing their model. So you'll see here, this photograph here is one of our local businesses. It's a coffee shop called Wakey Wakey. And it's a small coffee shop, but they were trying to figure out what they were going to do. You see they have a one-car drive-through here. And what they did was when the governor allowed the to-go alcohol, they took advantage of that. And so now they have quite a thriving business on to-go frozen drinks. And there have been times that I've gone home in the evening and passed by their business, and there is a line of cars that is wrapped around. So they thought outside of the box. They jumped on the bandwagon here, and they've done great. The last thing I would say about this is we've circled back with our businesses to keep that dialogue open. How are you doing? What's going on with your business? You know, how many of your employees have been affected? Just trying to keep that open line of communication with them. The leadership, you'll see here in this picture, our mayor, Jason Perez, and our city council. We, like so many communities, have done our meetings predominantly online at first. We've gone to having some in attendance, social distance now. But the mayor, being in the safety industry himself and an EMT, has put out fantastic mayor's messages, live videos. Council directed the leadership here at the city to do an impact survey for the businesses to find out how they were coping. We had calls with our hoteliers who seem to be the most predominantly impacted, with basically going to no occupancy. We talked to them about relief efforts and how we could help them with state programs and things like that. And lastly, great leadership brings other people to the table that don't do what you do, so that we all are putting our heads together and we're trying to figure out how we can best help the community and inform and use our resources, divide it and conquer it together. One of those leaders that was brought to the table was Engleton Independent School District. And because the kids weren't in school and we were concerned about, and they were concerned about feeding the children, they did field meal stops where they loaded up the meals and they went to the neighborhoods and they fed the children by a curbside drop-off. Over 2,600 meals were served daily. Taking care of the most vulnerable. Action S is our local organization that services the senior citizens in the county. And their convocation centers had all been closed down because of COVID-19. So because our recreation center here in Engleton was closed, we partnered with Action S to be a distribution hub. We collected food. They put together grocery sacks and meals, and they delivered from the Engleton Recreation Center during COVID-19. We utilized our local talent. This is a local seamstress here in town that has an Etsy shop, and she began sewing masks when you couldn't find any mask, and of course all the medical grade PPE needed to go to the hospitals and nursing homes and medical facilities. So she was taking donations, buying fabric, and sewing masks for the community. Communicate the good things that are happening. So here we are just immersed in all that is COVID, and you forget that there's still a lot going on behind the scenes. So I'm proud to say that Engleton is currently doing a livable center study of our downtown area. We're thrilled about that, and we're so glad to have that moving forward. The city projects, we've got a lot of development happening in Engleton, a lot of home building and new businesses in town. We've got street projects and sidewalk projects, and so just a communication campaign that's gone out that we've continued to let the citizens know that, hey, things look different, but there's still a lot that's going on. So we're communicating the good news as well. The City of Engleton also partnered with the Area Chamber of Commerce to fund a Back in Business and Better campaign. This was done just like you would imagine the opening campaigns that they do for a ribbon cutting, but this was a ribbon tying saying we're celebrating that we are getting through this and we're going to keep our businesses together. So we all participated in this, and it was a great campaign by the Chamber of Commerce that we helped with. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Amy. You know, any presentation that starts with a quote from Mr. Rogers, you know that you're about to get some really good information coming up. Thank you for that, and for the ribbon tying ceremony and some of the other things that you were talking about. It shows how that we work as a team and partner with the businesses and partner with the communities to figure out how to stay open and how to stay thriving. And that seemed to be the theme across everything we've heard about today, especially this section. So now it is time for us to hear some questions from our attendees to our panelists today. Aaron Werner from the Texas Downtown Association, Kimberly Judge from the City of Dayton, and Martha Amy from the City of Engleton. Wendy, do we have any questions in the question box yet?
Yes, we have one. Do you see a long-term plan for any of the temporary solutions, such as a temporary outdoor seating, parklets, and ordinances and policies that allow alcohol consumption outside of bars and restaurants? And this goes to everyone.
Okay, yeah, this is Aaron, and I can take a quick shot at this, and also would love to hear other people's feedback. But yes, to most of that, I absolutely do. I think that one of the, like in McKinney, for example, we've talked about outdoor space for quite a while, like having a public pedestrian area. I guess think Boulder, Colorado, for example. COVID is like a fast track to being able to practice what that would actually look like in more of a permanent environment in McKinney, and also see the community feedback to having like an outdoor little kids play area or outdoor tables, things like that, and how it'd be utilized. And it's been overwhelmingly positive. And in fact, many of our merchants were very anti do not take away parking pre-COVID. Now we have those same merchants coming back to us saying, we would love to have a more permanent space in front of our businesses. And so again, I think COVID has allowed us to try some things we might not have been able to try, but it is bringing this idea that some of it might be viable and worth keeping around. Real quick to the alcohol question, I know that what we're seeing from our governor's office is that most likely to-go alcohol will stay. I guess that could always change. You never know, but that's what we're seeing. And then when it came to outdoor or open container in our downtown, in our research, we found out that there actually is not an ordinance or not a law that says you can't have that in your downtown. The only thing that was stopping us was our local ordinance that restricted it in our commercial district. So once we removed that, we were in compliance with everything else statewide. So if you do a little digging on open containers, you'll see that it's actually not as strict as you might think. And if your community doesn't have an ordinance that restricts it in a specific area, then technically it's allowed already. People just don't know that. So.
Would anyone like to add anything to that?
I was just going to say, in relation to what he was saying, I think too that we are all going to be looking at things differently. You see that with our ordinances and looking at how you can do things differently, thinking outside of the box. Is it really the law, or is it something that we've just, thought was the law? So we're looking at that differently, and we're going to probably have a lot more successes in the future because we've had to do that. So there are good things that have come from this.
Thank you. Andrea, there are not any more questions.
Okay, thank you, Wendy, and thank you again to all of our presenters for this section. And that question actually leads right into the next section, the COVID wins, I guess. That's what I've been personally calling them, is how we've been talking about how we're attracting visitors and keep businesses thriving by being flexible and ready to respond to these changing circumstances. But our next session will take a look into the future using data and trends to predict some of the long-term implications of COVID and ways that communities can transition from responding to challenges to making plans for those long-term resilience and sustainable growth. Next is John Karis, Vice President of Business Development with TIP Strategies, with Rethinking Main Street in the Age of Remote Work and E-commerce. Mr. Karis?
Good morning, everybody. Okay. Just wanted to confirm if you can give me a yay or nay on, can you see my screen and hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine. We can see your screen. It is a map of Engleton. Is that what you intend for us to see?
Oh, no, let me change that here. I was looking up downtown Engleton on the last one here, so let me try to get out of that. Okay, is it now showing the PowerPoint presentation?
It is, and we can see your notes slide if you just want to switch display settings up at the top.
Okay,
Perfect.
Is that better?
Perfect.
Okay,
Good to go. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. So this I wanted to, first of all, thanks to the Houston-Galveston Area Council, and I've been listening in to each one of the panelists and speakers and really appreciate all of the examples. The state of Texas over a longer period of time with you some of the things that we've been thinking about at TIP Strategies and really rethinking main streets and downtowns and economic and community development in this age that we're living in that is being defined by remote work and e-commerce. And strategies and talk with you about some of the national trends that we're seeing and how they're affecting opportunities for main streets and small towns and then specifically highlight some of those opportunities which many of y'all have given on already. So again, our firm TIP are an economic development strategic planning firm based in Austin, Texas, and we've been around for 25 years, and we work with cities and counties and regions around the country, including many communities in Texas and Houston area. We've done economic development plans for Pasadena, Missouri City, Fulshire. We're currently engaged with Harris County on helping them put together a new economic opportunity and equity department. But we also work around the country. We're working in everywhere from Alaska to Delaware and Green Bay to New Orleans. And the firm, a lot of you probably have seen some of our leadership, Tom Stellman, and relatively new to the firm, Tracy McDaniel, our president, who worked for the state of Texas, state of New Jersey, and Greater Houston Partnership years ago in economic development. And main streets and downtowns in Texas, personally, I've been thinking about them for many years, but recently I've been thinking about main streets much more. So this is just a few weeks ago, this is a family camping trip my wife and son and our dog Scooby-Doo took all the way up to Caprock Canyon State Park. I'm actually from Lubbock, Texas originally, and as being good Texans, we're not shy about taking an 850-mile round trip over a long weekend to go camping. And I show this not just to remind myself of sunnier, warmer weather in all this cold and cloudy day here in Austin, but one of the things that I thought a lot about as we took this trip, which was a different kind of trip because we were going camping and we took our own food and we drove through a lot of main streets and small towns between Austin and Caprock Canyons on the way there. We didn't step foot in any buildings. We even took our own portable toilet with us. This is, traveling in the age of COVID is very different. And this is the main street, the nearest town to Caprock Canyons. And this is kind of what it looked like when we drove through there, and it got me wondering what is the future of the downtowns across. I really appreciate the comments from Aaron earlier on history. Really suggests that downtowns will be resilient, and the innovation that all of you talked about going on in your communities. So I'm optimistic, but I think this is something that we need to really think about, how these larger forces are impacting the future of our downtowns. And I'm going to talk about, before I do that, I did want to, using Mentimeter, so I'm going to, so bear with me as I try to transition to this other screen here. Let's see here. So this is an online live polling tool, and so if you go to the website, well, first of all, I need to see my screen here. Are you able to see with the photo?
Where is this? Minty.com? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, great. So if you get your phones out, it might be easier looking at the computer screen and then using your phone to type in the answer. So the first question is just kind of a fun one to see if you recognize where this photo is. This is the photo that I had on the cover slide. I actually took this photo February earlier this year, so it might still look like this, I'm not sure. If you go to menti.com, MENTI.com, and put in that 6-digit code, you should be able to answer the question. Looks like so far folks are okay. Good. We're getting some answers here. No clue, no idea. Okay, it'll be interesting to see if anybody comes up with this. Central Texas, not quite. Good guess though. Don't know. West Main Street. Okay, that's a correct answer. I guess I should be more specific. Which town or which city is this in? But I love that. Ooh, Baytown. Very, very good guess. Close, but not exactly. So again, this is what it looks like. And I love this photo, the image of this old theater here. This place matters. Okay, I'll give you all a few more seconds to see if anybody comes up with it. And then I've got 3 questions for all of you to get a sense of how your main streets are doing and where you see opportunities. So no correct guesses here, although the West Main Street wasn't incorrect. That is correct. The correct answer is the city of LaPorte on the east side of Harris County, just east of Pasadena, not far from Baytown. So this is west LaPorte. So okay, we're going to move on to the next question in the live polling. So communities that you work in or that you represent, how are your downtown commercial spaces doing now versus a year ago in terms of amount of vacancies, occupancies? Are you seeing a big increase in vacancies and just becoming a kind of like that photo of downtown Turkey, Texas, looking more like a ghost town? Or in some cases, maybe you're seeing more activity and more occupancy levels, and maybe your community is more vibrant than ever in the downtown. All right, so it looks like a couple answers so far coming in. A lot of folks seeing not a huge change, holding pretty steady. Looks like a few communities you're seeing an increase in vacancies, so that's not surprising given the struggles that a lot of small businesses in communities are facing right now. By the way, thank you for participating in this interactive polling here. It makes it a lot more relevant, I think, some of the examples that we'll be talking about here. So it looks like a lot of folks are either holding steady or seeing a slight increase in vacancies right now, just based on the input that we're getting here. All right, I'm going to ask 2 more questions, and they're the same question but with different time frames. So if you think about the next 12 months into, I guess, 2021, toward the end of next year, where do you see the most promising growth opportunities in your communities downtown among these 5 categories? If you had to prioritize them from the most promising to the least promising over the next 12 months. And the next and final question here, I'll ask you to rank these same 5 categories, but over a 5-year period. All right, we're getting our first responses here. So it looks like so far, bars and music venues and entertainment looks like a pretty promising option in the near term. Retail, okay, that's interesting. Retail's showing up pretty high, restaurants as well. It's kind of the horse race that's going on around the track and which horse is going to come out on top. Looks like commercial office space, you see a lot of opportunities as well. We're going to talk quite a bit about how remote work is changing the dynamic, so that'll be interesting to see. Okay, so in the next 12 months, that's really interesting to hear retail and restaurants, also commercial office space. So next question, same categories, think about them over the next 5 years, a little bit of a longer term situation. What do you see as the most promising? And thank you again for everybody who's participating in this. We always get a lot of value out of input from the experts on the ground working in your communities. All right, so over the next 5 years, what do you see as the most promising downtown business and growth opportunities? So So far, looks like restaurants is maybe the winner here, which is interesting because 2019 was actually the first year in recorded history that there were more sales at restaurants in the United States than at grocery stores. 2020 is going to look quite different for obvious reasons, but the longer term steady trend of people going to restaurants, it looks like you're all saying we're still buying into that longer term trend. So, okay. The PowerPoint presentation here, so bear with me while I do that. And okay, so I'm going to assume that you can see the national trends slide here, but please jump in and tell me if that's not what you're seeing.
It is what we're seeing, but it's the notes view again.
Okay, great. Let me try. Is that better now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, no more jumping out into the live polling, so shouldn't be any more technical hiccups from here on out. So when we think about the national context, but the reality is we have been essentially lurching from one crisis to the next this year, and all of them are having a significant impact on our economy, everything from the virus itself and the economic turmoil to the social unrest and climate events. And by the way, we have an election coming up in exactly 1 week. So all of these are having a significant effect on basically every aspect of our economy, from commercial real estate to housing to transportation and logistics. And economic and community developers, and in our local communities, we have to ask the question of how are these effects impacting Main Street, and which trends that were already underway before the pandemic have been accelerated. So some of these represent threats, some of them represent opportunities. There are some big opportunities that were already underway in terms of restructuring supply chains and the reshoring of production. There's obviously the growth of e-commerce and online retail sales, remote work. Telehealth was something that was growing but has massively increased, and some of the other issues around the composition of the workforce and the social inequality that was there but has been increased. I'm going to just focus on the two that I think are most relevant for our discussion today, online retail sales and remote work. And let's start with the rise of remote workers. And this is one of those trends that was developing steadily over the last really couple of decades. If you go all the way back to the year 2000, only about 3% of the US workforce would be considered a full-time remote worker, where they were working from home primarily, not commuting into a single location. As recently as 2019, we were up to 5.7%, so nearly double the amount of full-time remote workers. In certain regions, that was much higher. So if you looked at the greater Houston area, it's a little over 5% were remote workers, but in Austin, over 10% of the workforce was working remotely full-time last year. Now, we all know that the pandemic has caused a massive increase in remote work for those of us who can work remotely in the near term. And the question is, what are going to be the lasting effects of that? So when we think about this, this is just one example. The tech company of Pinterest had a very nice new 500,000 square foot office building that they were ready to move into earlier this year. It was going to be a leased building, and they actually paid $89.5 million to break their lease because they decided our workers are going to continue to work remotely indefinitely. Similar things have been decided by other major companies, many of them in the tech industry, but all sorts of companies have decided our workers not only have to work remotely now, but they're allowed to continue to work remotely indefinitely if they want to. And that's having all sorts of major impacts on how commercial real estate decisions are made. Another example is REI. This is the company that sells outdoor and camping equipment, and they built a super fancy new headquarters in the Seattle area, and they abandoned their brand new headquarters and sold it off to Facebook because they decided we have to re-examine everything that we're doing, and we don't need this headquarters building anymore since our workers are going to continue working remotely. So when we look at what the data is telling us from corporate executives, but also office workers themselves, everything points to a lasting increase in remote work. So this is not just going to be a temporary blip as far as we can see. And it's going to have all sorts of ripple effects on not just commercial office space and construction, but how we design communities. And there's a really big question about how it will impact the demographic shifts in cities and suburbs and other places. When we think about the last 10 years, they really were the decade of downtown. And what you can think about that, I think it's true for large cities, but also small cities and main streets around the country. This is San Antonio. When Julian Castro, the mayor, took office in 2010, he said it's going to be the decade of downtown for San Antonio, and that's going to drive our community forward. And he was right. And I think in not just big cities, but in many small towns around the country, you saw increase in residential development, increase in restaurants and entertainment, increase in office space. And it was really maybe the best decade that we've seen in our main streets and our downtowns for many decades. So the question is there going to be a shift, and will the next 10 years be more the decade of the suburbs? There is some initial we're very early on in trying to understand the data, but there is some data that's saying that there's a shift driven by remote work that's pushing people outside of downtowns and city centers out into the suburbs. This is analysis of rental vacancy rates that up until 2020, the downtown vacancy rates and the suburban vacancy rates were pretty much tracking along the same path. But there's been a big spike in vacancies in downtown apartments this year so far. At the same time, suburban rental properties have seen a decrease in vacancy rate. And there's, just to give it versus suburbs, not so much on residential, but there's some really fascinating data. I encourage you all to go to the Greater Houston Partnership and their dashboard. And they showed some of the parking transactions that were down about 87% in the month of April, and they're still down about 70% compared to February of this year. So there's just a lot fewer people going into the urban core and more people spending more of their time in areas. Now, of course, we do have to point out that not everybody can work from home. There's significant disparities between racial and ethnic lines on which people are able to work in remote occupations. A lot of jobs just can't be done remotely, and the white segments of the workforce are much more likely to work in remote jobs. Black and Hispanic workers are less likely to work in remote jobs. So there is a disparity there. There's also a geographic disparity. So I mentioned earlier that the Austin area had a far higher share of remote work prior to the pandemic. We're seeing that in this other data source that looks at the share of small businesses that have no paid employees working remotely. So San Antonio actually has 2/3 of the small businesses in San Antonio don't have any workers that are working remotely. on the other side of that equation, the 10 metros that have more remote workers, a smaller share of their small businesses don't have workers working remotely. So there's some geographic disparities as well. So let's talk briefly about e-commerce. And this is something that was a steadily growing part of the national economy and retail landscape over the last couple of decades. Started off, essentially all retail sales were happening in person, and then once the dot-com era entered and sales started happening online, there was steady growth. We went from nothing to about 5% of retail sales online in a 7-year period. It took another several years to grow another 5%. And what really struck me about this, looking at this data, is as late as last year, as big as e-commerce was, and Amazon and all the online retail, it was still only about 11% of all sales happening online as of last year. And you see, it took just a couple of months to grow yet another 5%, almost 16% of retail sales happening online in the second quarter of 2020. So the question is this going to be a blip, or is it going to be a permanent change in how retail happens? And I think some of this is going to be lasting and permanent. So the question is, what does this mean for Main Streets and small businesses? There's certainly a challenge and a concern. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal just a week or so ago where the CEO of the National Main Street Center, Patricia Fry, was talking about how this could be a generational setback. But I do go back to the creative examples that all of you shared, all the other panelists and speakers shared, that this is downtowns and main streets are not over. There's tremendous amount of opportunity, and we have hundreds and maybe even thousands of years of evidence that shows the move toward urban areas and to people gathering is something that is going to continue. So let's talk about some of the opportunities for Main Streets and for cities and the suburban communities surrounding major metro areas as well. So I love the example that Kimberly shared earlier on the food trucks, and I do want to just make the point again that there is a tremendous amount of uncertainty, but that uncertainty leads to creativity. We think of past economic downturns, and that's when a lot of creative companies are started that become the next major company after they get through the tough time period. So back to the food truck example, this is something that my wife is actually on the board of our homeowners association. We live in a small neighborhood in Austin called Sweetwater Glen. It's a subdivision of just 250 homes, and when she joined the board this summer, she thought, well, we're in a pandemic, we're not going out to eat, we're staying home, maybe we can bring some food trucks into our neighborhood. So she's done that, and just to give you a sense of the types of restaurants that this is the calendar for the next couple of months, some of these are major brands that have started in Austin and have grown elsewhere. Torchy's Tacos, Chuy's, Taco Deli, Cilantro, you're probably familiar with some of these names. And back to the creative examples that Kimberly was showing over in Dayton, when you create a space for these restaurants to bring their products to you, they're willing. In fact, if you look at the types of restaurants that are doing food trucks, many of these didn't have them before, and they're more willing and open to innovating along with the community, because it's in their interest as well. So it's just another creative example. Another really tactical thing that you can do that a lot of main streets and downtowns are doing. You've all seen the news in Austin. We have the new Tesla electric vehicle factory that's being developed. There's going to be more and more electric vehicles hitting the roads in Texas around the country in the coming years. The question is, where are they going to be able to charge up? So electric vehicle charging stations. This is something that one of our clients, actually the city of North Miami, a suburb between Miami and Fort Lauderdale, they're installing electric vehicle charging stations in their downtown to attract more customers, because they've done the research and it shows that people are willing to park their car and stay longer, and it's actually good for local businesses by having these innovative spots for electric vehicles. Another question is, when we think of the future, the history as well as the future of downtowns, I really believe what Jane Jacobs, the urbanist author who wrote The Death and Life of Great American Cities, she said that you need to have old buildings in your community and infuse them with entrepreneurs and creativity and innovation. And I really believe that a lot of the old buildings in our communities that happen to be, by and large, in our downtown district are the perfect places to start the next company for entrepreneurs. We've worked in a lot of smaller cities around the country, Green Bay, Fargo, North Dakota, Asheville, North Carolina, that have taken these old buildings in their communities and fused them with new investments and turned them into co-working spaces, event venues for startups and innovation. And with all the dollars that are out there from the federal government, there's from the EDA, the Economic Development Administration, there are real opportunities to invest in new spaces for your entrepreneurs and your small businesses. And of course, in the near term, the concept of gathering people into a space is going to be still a challenge, but there are ways around that. And when we think about investments over the next 5 years and beyond, the concept of co-working in a downtown space, even in some of your smaller communities, is going to be really an important part of bringing in new energy and new activity into your downtown and your community. One more example that I think is really creative, and this actually started a couple of years ago, the notion of attracting companies in economic development has been kind of turned on its head, and we've been talking a lot more about attracting skilled workers to our community in the past 5 to 10 years. And Tulsa, Oklahoma, came up with a remote worker specific talent attraction effort that last year they started with 100 slots, and it was funded by a local foundation. Some of you probably heard of this in the news, and it's been so successful that they expanded it to 250 people this year. And these people are coming from all over the country, from California and elsewhere, and they're moving to Tulsa because partly there's an incentive attached to it, but more importantly, they built a supporting infrastructure of organizations and a community that welcomes these remote workers into Tulsa. And they're getting more and more traction this year, as you can imagine. It's an interesting case study because they built this program before COVID and are now seeing some of the benefits of it. So it kind of begs the question, with more people working remotely, what is the benefit? What is the economic value to your community? A lot of them purchase homes. In Tulsa, many of those folks actually invested in property. If you have more people working remotely, whether they're the people who already lived in your community and are now, rather than commuting into the Galleria area or downtown Houston or the medical center, they're spending more time in and around their hometown. So they're spending money at local businesses. They're contributing to the placemaking. And there's all sorts of other net benefits to having remote workers in your community. And one, I think, that I would add to this list, it's really like the ultimate diversification strategy, so that you're not dependent on any one industry, because people that are working remotely are in every type of industry that you can imagine. So it's really something that we need to pay more attention to. And if there's going to be more people interested in working remotely, the question of, can you provide the types of housing options that those workers want, whether it's the Main Street kind of downtown environment, or whether it's the suburban dream home kind of ideal. as a community, you really want to get in as quickly as possible, developing the types of housing options that the future workforce is going to desire. So the last example that I'll share with you as a real opportunity, and this is especially true for a lot of the communities that are along the I-10 going out west of Houston and some of the major highway corridors. The other side of the e-commerce data is it's not just a threat to traditional retail establishments. It's a huge opportunity for everything from warehousing to distribution, all the different things that supply the foundational elements of online retail sales, even data centers that support the technology infrastructure of it. And this e-commerce is not just for retail, but even for restaurants. If you've been following the trend, I think a couple of years ago was the first time I heard of a cloud kitchen, essentially a restaurant that exists and no customers go to it, and it's only for delivery. And actually the founder of Uber has started a company called Cloud Kitchens that they've been investing in building a huge network of properties that are going to be delivering food, essentially restaurants that are only available on apps in cities around the country. So this is, and even grocery stores like Kroger are looking at this. So it's a huge opportunity for a lot of communities. So just a few final thoughts, and then would love to get some questions and answers going here. It's really focusing on the basics, really supporting the small businesses and making the quality of place investments is really important. I think some of you talked about this, rethinking the regulatory environment, examining your ordinances. Like in some communities, there may be outdated limits on you can't run a business out of your home. Paying attention to the broadband infrastructure, the need for everybody to have broadband is so critical right now and in the future. And then rethinking your opportunities for business growth, e-commerce, remote workers, and more specifically thinking about smaller communities. You have a lot of advantages. There are often fewer layers. Examples in McKinney about doing things more quickly than local government is used to. I think a lot of you have been doing that. Better access to the decision makers in your community. And then, of course, leveraging the outside resources, organizations like the Houston-Galveston Area Council and GHP. And then there's all sorts of funding sources that many of which have been around for a long time with USDA Rural Development and EDA, and then some of the other member associations focused on economic development, downtown associations, tourism. There's a ton of great resources out there. And with that, I will go ahead and close up shop here and look for questions that y'all have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Karis. And I think you gave us, as always, a lot to think about. It. We're really going to have to rethink how we're looking at things moving forward. We'd love to invite everyone to ask Mr. Karis any questions. If you have any, please type them in the question box, and I will ask Wendy if there are any questions ready for him.
We have one. With all the changes in how we need to look at planning based on how we do business, as a community or economic development corporation, where do we start?
Great question. I think some of the examples that folks shared earlier, looking at your trade associations, in Texas with the economic development corporations, we have a fantastic association with TEDC. They've put on a number of events recently, the annual conference. Nationwide, I think the International Economic Development Council is a great resource. And yeah, I think your fellow peer communities, and I love some of the examples in Mcallen about doing the selling pods for social distance events. There's just so much creativity happening right now. There's almost anywhere you look, whether it's your peer communities, your trade associations, and feel free to contact me as well. And I know that our team at TIP has been collecting best practices through the National League of Cities and other organizations, and I'd be happy to share those with you.
Thank you. Andrea, that's all the questions we had.
Okay, we do have a little time, and I know that when we sit here quietly waiting for questions, it feels like a long time, but if we want to give it a few more seconds to see if anybody is typing a question and ready to go. Or if you answered all the questions in your presentation and no one wants to ask anything.
I'm seeing none.
Me too. So I do think that if people would take you up on your offer to reach out to you, there's probably going to be some questions that they think of later, and we'll put all these presentations online for people if they to get everyone's contact information. And so with that, I would like to thank everyone for attending today. I want to thank the HGAC staff who worked many hours to put this event together for you and make sure it ran as smoothly as possible. That's Cheryl Murgo, Jillian Donato, and Wendy Almanzon. And I want to thank the HGAC Executive Director, Chuck Wimple, for getting us started today. And an extra special thank you to all of our presenters, Mike Baxter, Joe Vera, Harina Jimenez, Yahaira Flores Delgado, Madison Brooks, Aaron Werner, Kimberly Judge, Martha Amy, and John Karis. As a reminder, presentations from today's webinar will be available online, and we'll send you a follow-up email that shares that link. We'll also send you a link to a survey that we hope you'll participate in to help us plan future roundtables and seminars. And with that, thank you again, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.